Hi, friends. Welcome to the Hey Fundraiser podcast. I'm your host, Mary Peterson, and whether you're a frontline fundraiser, an executive director, a board member, or someone just wanting to make an impact in your community, this podcast is for you. We cover all facets of fundraising, and our main objective is to give you ideas and inspiration to help you raise more money. Join us as we grow, learn, and make an impact together. Hey, fundraiser. So it is a new year, which means a new fundraising goal. Now, many of you might not have a fiscal year that ends on December 31st, but if you do, this podcast is for you. And if you don't, then this podcast is ready for when your fiscal year does end. I'm hoping that this podcast is going to help you welcome 2025 as we kind of sit down and think about how are you going to meet this year's fundraising goals. I also want to let you know that I'm going to link a really awesome tool in the show notes. And this is a tool that I use to help me plan out my year of major gifts. And all my coaching clients also use it. You should totally download it. It's a game changer. So I was telling my husband the other day, it was like the last week of December, and we're driving home, we're on the highway. And I was saying to him that when you're a fundraiser, December is really a great time of year, and that it doesn't even matter when your fiscal year ends. December is when people give. Like the highs are super high. You're closing gifts. You're seeing stock transfers come in, all the things. But then something happens on January 1st. And although you raised a ton of money for your mission, and hopefully you were super successful, that money went to the mission, which is fantastic. But you have to start over. And there's something very daunting and psychological about that. So I used to have all these, pretty dashboards and things. And I would sign into my computer every morning, open up my email, and then open up my CRM. And I would go to my dashboards and I would see like, okay, this is how much I've raised. And I would watch as the numbers increased. Well, when I came in on January 3rd or January 4th and I signed in and I opened up my inbox, opened up the CRM, and all those bars would be at zero. So it's a moment because you've worked really hard and then you have to start over. So I just want to take a moment to kind of honor that. It's a lot, but I'm hoping that this podcast is going to help you not have a moment and get ready to tackle these goals. So the big takeaway today is if you have a really great plan and you actually work that plan, you can accomplish anything. I want to focus on three big things today. The first is breaking down your annual goal into actionable milestones. The way to do this is, let's say you have a $1 million goal. Yes, you have a $1 million goal. And that's a lot to think about. But if I'm going to teach you different ways to break it down so it seems much more manageable. I'm going to teach you all my tips and tricks. Okay, second is creating a plan that's going to keep you on track throughout the year. So time is relative, and it's very easy for us as fundraisers to kind of lose track of time. So when I didn't have a plan like this in the past, I would go about my fundraising and I would be closing gifts. And then I would be like, oh my gosh, I only have 3 months left in the fiscal year and I still have half my goal to raise. So I want to teach you some tips and tricks that are going to keep you on track. And then the third thing is just being able to adapt and adjust as the year unfolds. This is critical because things happen. You know this. But not only things like life gets in the way, new programs come about, things are happening at your organization. It throws you off kilter when the organization changes things or something happens in your life. Things are just emerging every day and you have to be very nimble. Most fundraisers are really good at doing that. We're social, we're resilient, but I want to teach you some tactics today that are just going to help you be proactive in course correcting when you need to course correct. So let's jump into building manageable milestones. I like to do this in a quarterly fashion. So essentially, I don't peanut butter my goal over every month because there are just some months and quarters that are frankly more fruitful than others. So let's say my fundraising goal was 1.2 million. And of course, I had 12 months in the fiscal year. I would not say, oh, I just have to raise 100,000 a month and that's how I'll meet my goal. Okay, it never works out that way. So we need to do a little something that will help you understand when you can bring money in and how to bring money in. So I like to break it into quarters. And I might think, okay, in Q1 is fairly slow. So I think I can raise 150,000. Now, Q2 in spring, that seems to be a really good quarter for me. So I think I can raise 400,000. Then over the summer or Q3, that's a really tough time to fundraise. So I think I can bring in 100K. And then in Q4, I'm going to bring in the rest of the goal, whatever the math is. So really think through, what are your months? What are your quarters? How do gifts flow into your organization? And write it down by month. The reason I do this quarterly is because if you start with the first week of the year, okay, I've got to raise 1.2 million. Then all of a sudden it's June and you're like, oh my gosh, I've still got $1 million to raise. And you're just kind of stuck in a reactive place. And, fear sets in and worry, and you just can't be your best fundraiser when you're coming from a place of fear. So I like the proactive, positive place. So once I have my quarters mapped out, then I sit down with my prospect list. So I know I kind of have a target for each quarter, like a monetary target. Now I sit down and review my prospect list. Your prospect list needs to be full of people that you can close in the next 12 months. Not, oh, I'm going to start cultivating this person and maybe a gift will come in, or, this person, he or she's been on the radar, but I just haven't made contact with them. No. Your prospect list is, who can I close in the next 12 months? And if there are people on your prospect list that you don't think the gift is going to come in this next fiscal year, then I would put them to the side and focus on the people who you can close in the next 12 months. So you cannot be successful if you don't have the right prospect list. So that's step 2. Now, step 3, you've kind of honed, you've carved, you've massaged your prospect list. Now you want to dig into each person on that list. So I go through the list one by one and I write down, how much am I going to ask for? And what month do I want to try to close this gift in? Then I do a work back plan for every single prospect. So for example, let's just say I want to close a gift from the Smiths in June for $50,000. I then start to map out, what do I need to do every month to get them ready for a solicitation by June? So what am I going to do in February? How am I going to reach out in March? Is there something special in April that I can engage them with? What happens in May? And then how do I want to ask? So this work back plan has served me really well in the past. It's a little bit time consuming, but your entire year is going to be mapped out so beautifully, I promise. Now, don't forget to download the tool in the show notes. This is going to help you get your thoughts together. So when I'm looking at my prospect list, I also look at, who can I close together? Are there people who are friends? Is there a family on here where I could talk to the whole family? I mean, you only have so much time in the day. So let's say that I'm planning a dinner party at my board chair's home in May, and I want to invite 4 couples to sit at that dinner table. It'll be just me and my executive director and these 4 couples and the host, of course. And I really want each of these couples to commit to a $100,000 gift. Like, who are those 4 couples? Who should I be inviting to this? And if it's May, what do I need to do to get these people on board? So it's really block and tackle. You have what you're going to raise for the month. You have the right list. Now you're going through the list and plugging names into the different quarters and months. Now, as you're building out this calendar, you also want to sprinkle in dates that are important, big events. If you have a gala in October, if you have a walkathon in the spring, if you have vacation coming up, I mean, all the organizational things that can kind of be a distraction. So let's say you have a strategic planning event coming up in July and the whole organization is shut down for 5 days to go through a facilitated strategic planning process. Put that on the calendar. Once you know these things, it helps you understand when you're going to be distracted. I mean, you might have an offsite retreat, the gala, when you have big events like that, it's all hands on deck. So leading up to your gala in October, you might think, October's kind of a wash because I've got all these other things to do. I mean, even put your vacation on there. Anything that is going to distract you from closing major gifts. Okay. The next thing I do is review all of the big organizational goals for the year. And I make sure that I'm raising money for what the vision is. I mean, it could be a capital campaign. It could be that your organization is having its 50th anniversary and the board wants to raise $1 million for a new endowment fund. It could be that a new program is going to be launched this year that you need to educate donors about. Like, just sit down, and even if it is with your supervisor, the executive director, whoever it is, sit down with them and ask, what are the 5 big priorities this year? Now, most executive directors are going to say unrestricted funds, which that's a whole other podcast, which I will record one day. And unrestricted funds are great. I mean, that's the best money you can get. But you need programs and projects to rally around. So the reason I'm telling you to sit down and figure out what are the 5 big things you want to rally around this year is because this allows you to start matching people's passions with their pocketbook and your programming. And all these things need to come together to close major gifts. So the passion, the pocketbook, the programming. So now you have your quarters broken down, you have your right prospect list, you have your prospects mapped out with a plan for each prospect, you know what the organizational goals are, and you're matching those organizational goals to prospects who might be interested in those programs. Really the last thing to do is to sit down quarterly and review your plan and update it if need be. So if I find in my cultivation work that I had 3 prospects who I thought I was going to be able to close a gift this year, and it's just not happening. They've got, kids in college, or the granddaughter's getting married, or they're taking a trip around the world for a year, and you're not going to be able to close those gifts. As soon as and you can plan for it. So this is when you might mine your database to find other prospects to fill the gap. But why you're sitting down and looking at it quarterly is so that you know what's going to happen and what's not going to happen. And this allows you to course correct when you need to. Okay, fundraiser, there you have it. That's how I tackle a new year with a new goal. If you like this structure, go ahead and download the freebie that's in the show notes. Also, I'd love to hear from you. Tell me how you tackle new goals and what some of your rituals are. You can always email me at mary@heyfundraiser.com, or you can leave me a voicemail through SpeakPipe, and I'll put the link to SpeakPipe down in the show notes. Now, fundraiser, I know that I've pretty much taught you how to tackle your goal in a 15-minute podcast. But please note, this is a week or more of work. I mean, to really sit down, build your prospect list, figure out a plan for those prospects, when you want to close them, all the things. So I'd love to hear what questions you have and how you need some help. Okay, until next time, fundraiser. Hey, fundraiser, thanks so much for being here today. Did you know that we create a special page for each episode that contains helpful links, episode highlights, standout quotes, and freebies? Check it out in today's podcast description. If you loved what you heard today, would you kindly give us a rating and review? It really helps other fundraising professionals find our Hey Fundraiser community. I'm Mary Peterson, and thank you for listening.